Good Tuesday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Conversation Dirty News. Glad you all could be with us. Of course, you have your news headlines coming up on this Tuesday. Have a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. And in today's Entertainment Spotlight, you're part of my conversation with best-selling author Tui Sutherland discussing her brand new book, Wings of Fire. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Dirty News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Tuesday headlines. In national news, Special Counsel Jack Smith asked the Supreme Court to rule quickly on whether Trump can be prosecuted. Special Counsel Jack Smith on Monday asked the Supreme Court to take up and rule quickly on whether former President Donald Trump can be prosecuted on charges he plotted to overturn the 2020 election results. Smith made his request for the court to act with unusual speed to prevent any delays that could push back the trial of the 2024 Republican presidential primary frontrunner, currently set to begin March 4th until after next year's presidential election. A federal judge ruled the case can move forward, but Trump signaled he would ask the Federal Court of Appeals in Washington to reverse that outcome. Smith is attempting to bypass the appeals court, the usual next step in the process, and have the Supreme Court take up the matter directly. This case presents a fundamental question at the heart of our democracy, whether a former president is absolutely immune from federal prosecution for crimes he committed while in office, or is constitutionally protected from federal prosecution when he has been impeached but not convicted before the criminal proceedings begin, prosecutors wrote. The court is next scheduled to meet privately on January 5th, 2024. It's unclear whether the justices would convene sooner to take up Smith's request. Underscoring the urgency for prosecutors in securing a quick resolution that could push the case forward, Smith and his team wrote, "It is of imperative public importance that respondents' claim of immunity be resolved by this court and that respondent's trial proceed as promptly as possible if his claim of immunity is rejected." At issue is a December 1st ruling from the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan that rejected arguments by Trump's lawyers that he was immune from federal prosecution. In her order, Chutkan, who was appointed by President Barack Obama, wrote that the office of the president does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. Former presidents enjoy no special conditions on their federal criminal liability, Chutkan wrote. Defendant may be subject to federal investigation, indictment, prosecution, conviction, and punishment for any criminal acts undertaken while in office. If the justices get involved, they would have an opportunity to rule for the first time ever on whether ex-presidents enjoy immunity from prosecution. In more national news, man in prison as teen for flower shop killing is released after judge throws out his conviction. A 35-year-old man who was sent to prison as a teenager for the 2004 killing of a man in a Minneapolis flower shop was set free on Monday after a judge ruled the eyewitness evidence on which his conviction rested was unreliable. Marvin Haynes, who was 16 at the time of the killing and has spent most of his life behind bars, was released from prison shortly after the judge's ruling. "I just want to thank everybody that supported me through this journey," Haynes told reporters outside the Minnesota Correctional Facility Stillwater, "and now y'all can recognize that I'm actually innocent," he said. Haynes later appeared at a news conference at the courthouse in Minneapolis with his attorneys, family members, and the county attorney. He said his next step would be to visit his mother, who had not been able to visit him in prison for the last 3 or 4 years since suffering a stroke. He said he now hopes to get a job and get his life back in order. In more national news, Biden and Congress are mulling big changes on immigration. President Joe Biden is taking a more active role in Senate negotiations over changes to the immigration system that Republicans are demanding in exchange for providing money to Ukraine in its fight against Russia and Israel for the war with Hamas. The Democratic president has said he is willing to make significant compromises on the border as Republicans block the wartime aid in Congress. The White House is expected to get more involved in talks this week as the impasse over changes to the border policy has deepened and the funds remaining for Ukraine have dwindled. Much of the negotiating is taking place in private, says the Associated Press, but some of the issues under discussion are known: asylum standards, humanitarian parole, and fast-track deportation authority, among others. In entertainment news, Barbie leads Golden Globe nominations with 9, followed closely by Oppenheimer. Greta Gerwig's Barbie dominated the Golden Globe Awards nominations with 9 nods for the blockbuster film, including Best Picture Musical or Comedy, as well as acting nominations for Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling and 3 of its original songs. It was closely followed by its release date and meme companion Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which scored 8 nominations, including Best Picture Drama, and for its actors. And finally, in business news, Wall Street drifted higher ahead of final Federal Reserve meeting of the year. Stocks drifted higher in afternoon trading on Monday on Wall Street ahead of the Federal Reserve's last meeting of the year. The S&P 500 was up 0.3%. The benchmark index hit its highest level in 20 months on Friday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 114 points, or 0.3%. The Nasdaq Composite edged up 0.2%. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's now time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. Good Tuesday, everyone. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Words I Choose to Live By. You have a good reason to smile today because the Creator has given you the opportunity, once again, to do good towards yourself and your fellow man. Life is all about opportunities. Do not let this one pass you by. Have an amazing Tuesday. We are part of my conversation. Coming up is best-selling author Tui Sutherland in today's Entertainment Spotlight. Stay with us. You're listening to Conversation Daily News. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Entertainment Spotlight. Best-selling author Tui Sutherland joined me on Conversations Live in Cyrus Webb Presents this week to talk about her brand new book, Wings of Fire, A Guide to the Dragon World. Here's a bit of our conversation. Tui, thank you again for the time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Cyrus. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, the pleasure's definitely all mine. The book is already a buzzing. You have readers of all ages that are enjoying this book. What has it been like for you, Tui, to see the response to the Wings of Fire series?
Oh, it's amazing. I love these readers so much. I love how creative they are, how they all have their own ideas and dragons, and they want to tell me all about them. And I just think that I've been so lucky to get to work on this series and connect with all those kids.
Yeah. And now what you've been able to do with this guide to it that I really love is if people are new to the series, I think this is a great introduction for them to be able to know a little bit more about the characters you've been able to create. But why did you decide now was the time to kind of give us this guide to kind of pull everything together?
Sure. Kids have been asking for a book like this for a while. They just wanted all the details, like an encyclopedia of the world, basically. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to make sure that I'd introduced all of the 10 tribes because there are 3 that you don't meet until book 11. And so books 11 through 15 take place on the second continent where you get to meet these new tribes and find out their history. So I wanted to make sure I had all of that sort of laid down in place before I did a guide that included the 10 different tribes, both continents, maps that cover like sort of all the different parts of the different kingdoms. And then it gives all these sort of answers to questions that kids have had all along. I actually had a list that someone gave me at a con where they were saying like, here are the questions that everyone has online. Can you answer all of these? And I went through like a checklist. It was so helpful, actually.
Love that. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning in to this edition of Conversation Daily News. But that's on tomorrow with more news, message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and of course, Entertainment Spotlight. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversation Daily News today. Let us go make today amazing. Take care.